See you sucker soon on a hot summer day. Coffee comes back in a nerve-wracking way. The dishes and laundry take the garbage out. What a day, what a day, what a day.
Well, welcome to Capital Region today. I'm so happy that you're joining us today. Here it is, almost the end of the month, and we've got great guests coming up here. We're going to be talking about a book. Actually, it's the fourth in a series. You've heard of Phil Bailey. I'm sure you've watched him on television years ago before he retired. Now he's writing books, and he's doing a great job, and we'll talk about his books. If you like skiing and you like history and you like, well, he's got it all. And then we're going to be talking about Children at the Well, which is the youth portion of With Our Voices. And they have young people that are telling stories. And we'll find out more about that. Paula Weiss is with us today about that. We're also are so pleased to have a woman from Iran here today. And she's going to be talking about the situation for women in Iran and what's going on there. So I'm really looking forward to that interview myself. And then we're going to be talking about Final Exit and Choices and Compassion, which is two different groups, but they come together with the same philosophy, is that it's a choice. Your life is a choice. So we'll talk about that. Eleanor Aronstein has been on the show before, a wonderful speaker, so I'm sure that you'll enjoy that portion as well. So we've got a great lineup today, and I hope that you're having a great month here. But we're going to switch right over to our first guest. We have Phil Bailey with us. I ran into Phil at the Scottish Games, and we chatted a bit. So I know he's got a little Scotch background. Scottish.
That is true, Scottish.
Scottish background. You may have a Scotch background for all I know, but I don't.
Never before 5.
And so when I read his book, and the book is called Witch Window, which doesn't until about the 10th or 11th chapter we find out what the witch window is. But anyway, he brings in this Scottish with us into the book. You bring in your love of skiing with it. You bring in your newspaper, and well, he's a newspaper journalist, but he's also on television as well. So you kind of have brought all of your passion in your life to your books. This is your fourth book.
Yes.
I'm enjoying it immensely.
Thank you.
And the one, I'll tell you why I like it. Can I tell you that?
Please.
Okay. I like it because of what you do with history. You don't just simply say a place. You give a little bit of a background about it. Or why. The why, the wherefore. So tell me about your book, Witch Window.
Well, it's part of the history. I mean, it's part of the story. It's one of the leading characters is the setting.
JC. And I just discovered what his name is.
Yeah, Jean-Claude.
Yeah.
His parents named him after Jean-Claude Killy,
great
French
the
ski
skier.
racer. So there's a murder. All my books are murder mysteries set at ski resorts. But I will say my favorite reviews that I read is when the reviewer says, "You don't have to ski to like this."
No, you're absolutely right, because I don't ski.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks. So, I love ski areas as a setting because, as you touched on, they're fascinating. They're in fascinating places. A lot of them are, great Native American history, the fur trappers and the mountain men, and they have a long history. Witch Window takes place in Vermont. And as you know, I mean, Vermont is full of myths and legends.
And that's what I'm learning about the Witch Window, yeah.
You know, Thomas Jefferson.
We're not, no giveaways.
No, we'll try not to this. No spoiler alert. So Thomas Jefferson and James Madison were arrested in, I think, 1791 in Vermont because they were riding in a buggy on Sunday.
How did you find that out?
That's what we do, right? I put.
They got arrested?
Yeah.
So
apparently they went easily.
At least they're not felons,
I suspect they were politically connected. So there are just these great stories to be told in Vermont and in all these settings. So that's why the history comes in. And there's something in there. What I do.
But you mix it with fictitious places.
Yes.
So you kind of mix it, so you really don't know that the place is fictitious from the way that he's describing the area or the history or whatever it is that you're going. And I realized, and you did a part in Colorado, and I think you mentioned Winter. And see, I'd been there. So I said, oh, I know that place existed. I'd been there. Yeah.
Snow Hat.
Yeah.
Which didn't exist.
Yeah.
It's somewhere in the Vail Valley.
Well, you mentioned
You'll
the winter.
always-
Is
you'll
it
always-
Winter?
Well, Winter Park certainly
Winter Park,
exists. Yeah, great ski area. I put them in a place that exists. And I absorb, the history and the people. And we go out there. I mean, we go to these locations.
Yeah, you've been there.
We go to Colorado.
Yeah.
Of course, I lived in Colorado a long time, but first book was set in Montana, Murder on Skis. And book 3 was Back Dirt is set in the Adirondacks, north of Lake Placid, and this one's set in Vermont.
And they're all really a great read. They're
Thank
a
you
great
so
read.
much.
I have to say that. I love to read, and I'm loving this one.
Thank
I'm not
you
quite
so
finished
much.
with it, so I don't know who the murder is.
All right, you want me to tell you? I'm not going to tell you.
The
You
butler
couldn't
did
try-
it. The
you couldn't-
butler did it.
But so the settings are really important. The reason I use a fictitious ski area and a fictitious resort town is because, a fellow author a couple of years ago said, "You're a genius. You can go out to Vail and tell them you're writing a book about it. And they'll give you free room, free food, and free
Oh,
skiing."
do they? Do they?
No.
Oh, you tried that. You tried it.
No, that's problem number one with that. No, they're not going to do that. And secondly, once I kill somebody in their gondola,
They're not going to.
I'm
That
gonna
was
hear
the
from
first
the
book. The
lawyer
first
who's
book, I
gonna
think, was the
explain-
gondola, wasn't it?
it was true.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then I'm going to hear from the lawyer who's going to explain pain and suffering, and cease and desist.
Exactly.
So I've got to do that. I make up this ski area, but I'll tell you, the mountain exists. We'll go to the location, and we'll use
So that you
real
can
roads,
describe it.
and I can see that and say that's good terrain. Now, sometimes I might add 1,000 feet vertical, but that's good terrain. This is a good location because I want it to be as real as possible. I just can't. I can't
I feel
kill
as though
people
I'm
in
there.
Vail and Breckenridge and Aspen.
Yeah.
It just wouldn't be received well by, the
But
people
I
whose
feel
lawyers
as though
can
I've
beat up
been
my
there.
lawyers.
When I read that,
Yeah,
I feel as
good.
though I've been in the ski lodge and I've
Good.
gone over there and
Good.
I can feel the cold.
That's another part. Well, yeah, that's part of it. I try to relive that experience. And we've all had, even if you haven't skied, you've been out in the cold, and there is an experience that comes with it. Part of it is sort of romantic and part of it is sort of annoying. The great thing about ski areas, and the reason I use ski areas is, reasons are twofold, but one is it's a great cross section of people. It's not unusual at all to ride up a chairlift and have somebody from Michigan on your left and somebody from Montana on your right, and the person next to them is from Austria. And you strike up a conversation. And more often than not, you find out you've been at a cafe at this, and it's in the same place, or you've been at a bar. These are great conversations you have going up the chairlift because you have nothing else to do. Nobody
So watch the
gets up
scenery.
early in the morning saying, "Hey, let's go ride a chairlift." No, I want to go skiing. The chairlifts are, something you just
means
have
to an
to
end.
endure. Yeah. So Vermont, I love the myths. I love the legend. I always knew I was going to write a book in Vermont. But why now? Who here at the table between the two of us had COVID sometime in the last few years? Exactly. Exactly. I knew I was
It's a
gonna
rite
write
of
in
passage.
Vermont
It's a rite of
sometime,
passage.
right? But at the time, we weren't comfortable. At this time, we weren't comfortable getting on a plane. And if we had flown anywhere, it probably wouldn't have been open anyway. But there was a time in this summer before the second wave where we kind of wondered if we were getting through it. All the numbers really dropped in the capital region, in Vermont. So we said, let's go to Vermont and scout locations, And we settled in Chester, Vermont, which is a great town where more people have been than may realize it. If you've ever driven to New Hampshire from the capital region, there's only two ways to go. Either you're going to go from Bennington to Brattleboro and then turn north.
Right.
Or you're going to cut across the state, which is what a lot of people do.
And then go north,
And there's
yeah.
this charming town you go through and you
Chester?
go, what a great town. And it's Chester. Yeah.
Okay.
And it isn't ski country. There's Okemo that way and Bromley this way.
And you do mention them in the
Stratton,
books, yeah.
Yeah. So the setting is as real as possible. And then, but you just, like I say, you just have to protect the innocent by renaming things. And of course, then you can embellish anyway, because it's not like this town is full of killers. It's a wonderful town, and nothing bad has ever happened.
Never.
Chester.
Never.
I was not talking about Chester. So COVID kind of drove that, as it did Baxter. It kind of moved them up in line when I was going to write a book there. Next year's book is back in Colorado.
You're on a roll.
I've got 3 finished manuscripts. I've got 3 manuscripts ready for the editor.
That haven't even been printed yet.
Right, yeah. And I do go back and do, like I was just revising next year's. That was probably the 3rd draft, right? It's ready to go. But it's kind of nice to have.
You probably get an idea and then you say, let me go back and fix that just to tweak it a little bit.
Sometimes the idea, like Loving Lucy, which was my 2nd book, that was in my head. That was a story that was almost haunting me. I said, let's get it out. And it kind of wrote itself. Whereas Murder on Skis was a book I'd really written 20 to 25 years prior to its publication.
Really?
Yeah,
I did not know that you
time.
were writing before you retired.
Yeah, but I was too busy to really see it through. So I was sitting there in Montana watching sunrises, and I said, I've said this often, but it's really true. I couldn't find the book I wanted to read, so I wrote it.
You wrote it.
Yeah, something neat that goes
on. Now,
wait a
minute. How come you read Nancy Drew?
Oh, what a great book! I had never read Nancy.
I just found out he just read for the first time Nancy Drew mystery.
Yeah, I posted it on our website.
Yeah.
And I'd never read Nancy Drew. And my wife, who is a great contributor to these books, and I'll tell you something in a second, but so she got a Nancy Drew book for me called Murder on Ice.
Yeah, because it had to do with
what a fun
winter.
Read.
Yeah,
it's at a ski area in Vermont, actually. I did not steal it. I wrote this first. Well, before I ever read that Nancy Drew, because it was written 30 years ago. Now, the other reason to mention my wife, well, there's a million of them, but she designed this cover.
Oh, she's a designer.
Really talented. She's an artist. She's a terrific artist.
Oh, wow. I like the cover. Yeah.
It is. It's great, isn't it? She designed Vector.
And a coaster. And the coaster.
And the coaster, our promotional materials.
And the promotional materials.
That's true. Yeah.
Good.
Carolyn does it all. She was working
What a
today.
team. What a team.
Yes. Yeah. I couldn't do it without her.
So where can they get your books?
You can get them anywhere, really. You can get them at pretty much any bookstore. And online, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, whatever you want to do. If you ever walk into a bookstore and they don't have the book you want, just ask them to order it because they will do it. People don't realize, 75% of the books I read, I went to the bookstore.
And had to tell them you wanted a copy.
And I looked for it. They have nope. They said, we'll order it for you. Absolutely, let's go.
Go to a bookstore. Please go to a bookstore.
Yeah, I love independent bookstores.
I do too, and I love to go through the stacks and look at books and find a treasure that I didn't know existed.
Yeah.
That's the
and
fun.
use bookstores too.
Yeah.
Bookstores love reading, and bookstores love reading, but they can only fit so much to their own.
I have to hold the book.
Oh yeah, I do too.
I have to hold it.
You're referring to ebooks, and there was this spike. And it looked like ebooks were going to take over the business, but it's come back down. Ebooks will always be here, and that's
they're
great.
Nice if
and
you're traveling. You don't have to carry 6 books.
You can also enlarge lettering. Some people, as their eyesight starts to go. So ebooks will always be here. But yes, I like holding a book too, and a lot of people do because that's coming back. The trend is reversing itself.
Well, watch for his 8th and 9th edition and 12th edition. I don't know where you're going with this one, Phil, but anyway, it's an easy read and it's an exciting read.
Thank you.
And it's also, I love the history in it. Yeah. So,
and
I got to look for those witch windows.
I got romance.
You got a little bit of that in there. I know that guy's he's not a swinger, but pretty close.
Heart wants what it wants.
Okay. Thanks a lot.
MurderOnSkis.com.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ann, so much.
Do it. Read it and do yourself a favor and read a really good book. So fun book. Yeah. It's not going to be the Encyclopedia Britannica, but
it's meant to be a fun read.
It's a fun read. It is. Thanks, Phil.
Thank you,
good.
Ann, very much.
See you on TV again. Okay, good. We're going to switch right over to our next guest. And of course, I am just thrilled to promote storytelling. At our last show, we talked with Kate Dunning about Story Circle, but this time we're talking about Children at the Well, which is an offshoot, not an offshoot, but it's a portion of with our story, with our voices, right? I want to get that right.
Shall I explain?
Yeah. So.
Okay. Actually, Kate Dunning, who was just here,
yeah,
was instrumental in starting us in that.
Really? Oh, I did not know that.
She came to a group of us. My daughter was involved with the Interfaith Story Circle when she was
I remember you still have the Interfaith Story Circle, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
we do. And my daughter was 11, and she became an interfaith storyteller, and she was the only kid for a while. And then Kate came along and said, the National Storytelling Network is offering a grant for programs that can transform communities. And so I knew that Gert Johnson, who was the founder of the Interfaith Story Circle, wanted to try a youth group. So I said, if you guys get your ideas together, I'll write it up for you. So we submitted this proposal and we won. It's a national contest and we won.
Isn't that amazing?
And it was Kate who brought the idea to us.
Well, I guess most kids, all right, I'm going to go from what I'm thinking. Kids are shy and they usually don't like to be in the limelight. How did you get them to get involved?
Oh, at first, it was mostly, teachers encouraging them, parents, that sort of thing. But once they're in the program, Stephanie can tell you how the coaches.
So Stephanie, yes, tell me.
Yeah.
How did you get involved?
So I've been doing this for about 1.5 years now. I got involved, they were looking for story coaches, people who had worked with kids, people with theatrical backgrounds. So the Mopco Improv Theater actually.
Oh, you've been working with Mopco.
Yeah,
They're wonderful over
them.
there. Yeah, Burns and Kat, yeah.
They sent me the job posting. I got in touch with Paula and I have had a very fulfilling experience working with them. So kids, I like to use a lot of theater stuff to try to break down some barriers. A lot of the
improv stuff to kind of loosen them up a little bit.
Yeah, it's low stakes, confidence, getting up in front of people, expressing yourself. And we really try to build a community within the students that they build themselves. We make our own rules. The students make the rules for how we're going to treat each other. And we treat that with respect. And so they're just able to feel safe, expressing themselves and also comfortable and willing to fail. So those kind of exercises, improv, theater stuff.
Do you get teachers involved in directing kids to this, or?
We wish we had more teachers sending us students, for sure. I don't think we had any teachers send us students this year.
Not this year. No,
We need to get them involved. Well, they've probably got their hands full with everything else that they're
It's
doing, but
been
still.
a couple of years.
But it's a good idea to get, and even theater groups to kind of,
I did want to add to what you were saying, Stephanie, about the idea of appreciations.
Yes.
To keep them building their confidence.
Yeah, we don't use constructive criticism, which I know.
the
With-
critique.
Yes. But your brain kind of goes, how do you get better if you don't use constructive criticism? But we use appreciations, which is just.
And it reinforces.
Yes.
It's a reinforcement.
It reinforces, but it also helps you discover. Like, when we just pick out good things, everyone picks out a different good thing about, the performance they just saw. And that means that the performer is now hearing all these good things, some of which they might not know about themselves. So you might not know that.
So someone else is recognizing
Yes.
what you don't recognize in yourself.
Yes. I feel like we spend a lot of time critiquing, but we often have positive thoughts about others that we don't share. So this has helped, the appreciations I've brought into like most other theater work that I do. It's really kind of changed the way that I like to teach theater, because you are reinforcing, building confidence, making it less scary to fail, because we're not going to point out your failures. We're going to point out where you went right.
You look at the strengths rather than
Yes.
because in building the strengths, you diminish the things that are not quite didn't work as well.
Every child is going to tell a story a different way. So I'm not your director, I'm your coach. I want to find out what you are best at. If you're great at character voices, or you have really good stage presence, or you're really good at coming up with similes and metaphors, I want to bring that out so that you can tell the story
You're the
best way
coach.
that you would. Yeah.
You're the coach, okay. You don't carry basketball or
No,
anything like
I am not a sporty person. believe it.
that. I mean, either. But anyway, so now when the student, they aren't student, I don't know, when they're storytellers, we'll call them storytellers.
Yeah.
When they come, are they, do you give them an idea of a story, or do they just want to talk about their dog Blue? I don't know. I'm just trying to.
So it starts off, we have several exercises we're going to run through. Our class just started last Sunday. We'll have some example stories. I don't want to spoil the class that's coming up, but But we encourage them to find a story that's very important to them. And we talk about—
Could it be something in their life?
Yes, personal narrative, a cultural story, a religious story, but we really want it has to be something they believe in with their whole heart, because they're going to be working on that story a lot.
Okay.
So the first several weeks are us trying to encourage them ways to find those stories, whether it's online, talking to your family, talking to family members about memories, history, thinking about different things in your life that are important to you, and how you can find a story that says what it is that you want to say. So.
Okay, so it could be my Uncle John who built ships or something, and you want to tell about him and how it affected you.
Yeah.
That would be like a story.
It could be that. It could also be a couple years ago, my co-coach Aya told me there was a teller, and she told the story of Hansel and Gretel. And, it's a simple story, a basic fairy tale. But what it meant to her was it was about her and her brother's experience as refugees. So students,
that's
the way that
interesting.
they attach to it is it's what's going to come out in the performance.
Yeah, because they were seekers too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they were both seekers. We're looking for something. Yeah. It's a metaphor. Yeah, really, really good. Paula, how do you enjoy working with this? I mean, in gathering coaches and gathering students and I mean, I know that you've got an event coming up. Tell me about that. And when I look at the photos, it seems as though you get multicultural
Yeah, we
stories.
do.
So tell me more about that.
So let me go back a bit to the structure of,
Sure.
of who we are. So Interfaith Story Circle was the first entity. Children at the Well was developed in 2006. We incorporated at that time. And the nonprofit is called With Our Voice. So that's where With Our Voice comes in.
Okay.
And the two programs of With Our Voice, Children at the Well and the Interfaith Story Circle.
Okay.
And we love reaching out into the community to gather students. It's always fun, it's always challenging, and teachers are our best allies, really, because they know the kids, they know the families, and they can encourage the kids to take advantage of this. We do not charge for the program. We offer it.
No, I know that. I see that. I mean, they can make a donation to help through a little bit,
And we're always looking for diversity. We're not strictly interfaith, but we're always looking for all kinds of diversity. So the kids that are coming together come from different walks of life and different
cultures,
backgrounds, different cultures, and different, the time that they've been in the United States may be different, the families. And they get to develop their voice and share with others and walk in each other's shoes by listening to the stories of others and supporting them.
What a wonderful way to reinforce multiculturalism. In my last show, we talked from someone from Romania, so we were able to talk about their music and their dance and things. We had China, we talked about that. It's so easy for us to kind of, you live in your little neighborhood and like anything else out there is someone else.
Well, did you hear Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries the other day?
The
in a
new
speech
one,
before
yeah.
He passed over the gavel. He said, we are a gorgeous mosaic of people from all different countries, and the Capital Region is the same way. So our programs really do make the entire area more vibrant for the participants.
I'm a total believer
Yeah.
in that. And I know that like my grandmother who was Italian lived in her little street. I mean, this was her whole world was this one little block on 7th Avenue in Mount Pleasant, and everybody on the street spoke Italian. She never learned English because she could rely on what she had. And I thought, I mean, I understand how people can get kind of boxed in that, but how enriching it is to learn about what other people do, because what you find, and I've traveled, you find wherever you go, there's a commonality between people. Yeah. And unless you recognize that because you're open to it, then you don't even know it exists.
And there's all kinds of practical reasons why it's so great to get to know your neighbors in your own community.
To find out, I really enjoy going to events that promote other cultures or other, religions. I don't care what it is, but it gives me a chance to understand a little bit more.
How about the Festival of Nations?
Absolutely.
Down in the capital.
Yeah. But then you get the foods. Of course, everybody loves the food.
Oh, yeah.
But there's more to that than, food is essential and something to be celebrated in every nationality or ethnic group. But there's more deeper things in each
Stories.
one that I find are more common.
Yeah.
And maybe that's what you're doing with the kids, making them hear that or see that.
Sometimes they see that. Yeah. When the kids do tend to come up with a lot of folk tales. And often you see the same repeating themes and sometimes the same stories.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. There are stories that
Do they
travel.
realize that, or is this as the group changes? Do you find like a same story from this group to in that group, but they didn't know it?
Oh, I don't know. It just
Yeah.
comes up now and then. Our
Okay.
stories kind of morph from one culture to another.
How many coaches do you have? I know you have Stephanie. How many coaches do you have?
2. It's myself and Coach Osmond.
Okay.
So we worked together last year. Together was our first time, and the program was over Zoom. This is our first time actually getting to do the program in person, which is wonderful.
Well, it's good to do it in person because then you
Yes.
kind of you can see the reactions and you can see a little bit more. I like Zoom. It is easy a lot of times, but in certain instances, you need that feedback and you need that movement between people.
Yes, the connection between the teller and the audience
Yeah.
is so much more fulfilling when you're actually in person.
Exactly. Now, do you record any of these, or do you
Oh.
do you have a website where people can check out?
Oh, sure. childrenatthewell.org. Yeah. And we also have a YouTube channel, Children at the Well YouTube channel. I also wanted to mention that we are looking for people who might be interested in serving as volunteer assistant coaches to
Okay.
come in and learn.
You have to
what
learn how to be a
Stephanie-
coach, really, because you want to do
Yeah.
the right thing. You don't want to steer them wrong.
But to work along with Stephanie and I.
Yeah.
So right now we're searching. So if anybody's listening to
Okay,
this,
well,
yeah.
that's something that probably let's address that on the show, that if you're interested in learning to be a coach, they're willing to teach you how to do that, and you work with kids and enjoy the fruits of the labor, I guess you'd say, because then now you see what you've not created, but had the person develop within themselves. And I can't imagine that this doesn't give them so much confidence.
It does. That's lovely. After the program's over and we have our event, this year we're having April 2nd will be the final performance. We give the kids all kinds of opportunities, optional opportunities. They don't have to, but if they want to come to a library, or sometimes we're asked to come to a festival, conference, the dance flurry, the Clearwater Festival.
Yeah.
We've done a number of things with
Yeah,
them.
and yeah, I
it's
mean, I
amazing.
just had the Chinese festival on, and they're always open to having people from other, cultures to come in and do their. They had even suggested that the ballroom dancer, which has
Yeah.
nothing to do with China in a sense, but to participate. So
I think we'll be at Niska Day this
Okay,
year.
great.
So, yeah, it's amazing. And you were asking about their confidence. It's amazing to see the growth.
And now this is going to be on Sunday, April 2nd at the Congregation Gates of Heaven.
No.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We're not sure where it's going to be.
Oh, you
yet.
don't know yet.
April 2nd, the childrenatthewell.org will have the information.
You haven't said where.
As it develops, but on February 5th, we're having a fun.
That your February 5th one will
Uh-huh.
be there. Okay,
With
good. I don't want
lights.
to misdirect anyone.
Yeah.
So anyway, thank you both for being here. Stephanie, keep doing what you're doing, because I think what you're doing is really great for kids to help them build confidence, because so often kids are shy and they don't want to be in the limelight. They're behind their mother's apron, sort of, wherever they can be. But what you're doing is really fulfilling for them and for their families as well, and for the community.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for both for being
Thanks
here.
for having
Thank
us.
you.
Yeah, we're going to switch over, and right now we're going to talk. I'm so pleased that you're here today.
Thank you for having
I
me.
heard about you, and I thought, this is an amazing opportunity for me and for you to bring stories to the viewers.
Thank you for
You're
having
from
me.
Iran,
Yes, I am.
and when did you leave there?
I was born and raised in Iran,
Okay.
actually. But I left Iran
I mean, how old were you roughly? Adult, child?
when I left.
Yeah.
I left when I was adult.
You were an adult. Okay, I'm just trying to get a picture of how long. Your title of your talk is Life, Women, Freedom, right?
Yeah, women, life.
What is going on? We hear about, and I don't want to throw any curves at you, but we certainly are hearing what's going on in Afghanistan, where women could do everything. They were attorneys, they were this, that, and the other thing, and then a theocracy came in and changed their whole lives. And it's still changing. Is that happening in Iran?
Yes, but there is more because Iran, Afghanistan was a part of Iran in the past.
Right.
So Iran has a rich culture that was one of the old civilization in the world. After revolution, Islamic revolution, around 44 years before, they changed a lot of things in the country. One of them was about the women and putting the headscarf.
The burqa.
Yes, but
hijab, or they wear both, or what?
Yeah, they are. We call them hijab, but by that it is a different way. You have a hijab, you can have just a scarf. Some people like to cover all the body, but the point is we don't have a choice to have a hijab or not, and it is the point. And it is something that happened after Islamic Revolution, and they forced women to have hijab. Since then,
it makes them invisible.
Yeah, but Iranian women fought hardly for that. We didn't accept it. We tried to fight.
To change it, yeah.
Yes. So even we wear a headscarf is not like really cover us. We try to put it back as much as we
and I
can.
understand that, yeah.
So, but how the movement start in the September 2022, the death of an innocent woman sparked the movement. And the story was, as probably you heard in the news, that we have some morality police there.
Yeah, I love the title.
Yeah. They have the patrols, and some people, and time to time, not always, come to you and ask you that why your hair is out, why you have a color on your nail, or anything. They are making money.
They're bullies. They're bullies.
They're bullies, and also they make money too. They give you tickets. There are.
So you get fined.
Yeah, it is not just really they caring about Islam or something. They are making a business through this, and also controlling women and society by this kind of acts. So that day when they went to a girl, she came just from Kurdistan, a part of the Iran, to visit their relatives, and she even covered well, she wasn't,
Yeah, I mean, she was being respectful.
Yeah. And so they took a wrong person, I am saying this. So they took her, and she was with her
Why
brother.
did they take her? Because her wrist showed or something?
A little of her was out, but it is not something, it is really not something weird happened.
Yeah.
It depends.
It wasn't blatant, and it wasn't like revolutionary that what she did.
No.
Okay.
And she was just walking with her brother out of the train,
Coming off the train?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, they took her, and as we know, in the van, in that patrol, she tried to speak up that why you took me, and there was another girls there too, but they started to beating her, and she hurts. When they took her in the police office, the way that they are trying to teach you how you behave, she didn't feel good. They didn't take that serious. They didn't took her to the hospital. So when they took her there, she was in the coma, and she stayed in the coma for 3 days, and finally
she died.
Yeah,
this was it. This was in the news. This wasn't. I mean,
okay.
Yeah.
And the point was, people was shocked, angry, And although they felt guilty, especially for us that we are living in the Tehran as a capital city, we thought she's our guest. She just
she
came
didn't
to
even live there.
visit.
She just came.
Yeah, and it was a few days before her birthday. Anyway, it was a several thing that really made people deeply mad about what happened, and something that governments do rather than just apologize. Oh, they say they try to deny, they make the family hush, they don't let them even have a funeral.
Interview. Yeah. Oh,
You know what I
no
mean?
funeral?
They don't want anything, make people
Did
give
they,
an opportunity.
did they give the body back to the family?
For this lady, they did, because it was in the beginning of the movement. They didn't know what is going on after.
Oh.
So they took the body to the Kurdistan. His father interviewed with one of the outboard broadcast in Farsi. So he told the story about what happened to her girl. And in the funeral, many people was there. The women started with chanting, women, life, freedom, means in Farsi, zan, zendegi, azadi, in Kurdi, jen, jian, azadi, all means the same. And they took off their headscarves.
Mm-hmm.
So this kind of act, they didn't have any plan to start a movement. They just reaction because the girl dead because of,
So they joined her.
Yes.
But she didn't even do that. I mean, she didn't even take the.
No, she didn't.
But
the
this was a
funeral,
defiance.
family.
But this was defiance.
Yeah, family and women start to do this act as a protest.
Right.
And after that, it has spread all the country. As a protest, people came out, women came out, especially young, to remove the hijab and a slogan, women, life, freedom. And it was the first time men came out and support.
I saw that the men are supporting.
Yeah, that kind of, and because this movement didn't have any head, they couldn't, stop it. It was bubbling up, you know what I mean?
Well, yeah, people can only handle so much, disrespect.
Yeah. So, but something that really I could say that young people, by using the internet and knowing about that, how to use it, try to spread the news out of the country as much as they could, So even the internet doesn't work well, they don't have access to the good speed, It is hard to really send something out of the country to the internet. In that time, I decided, come back to America in hope of to support, at least sharing through internet, speak up for the people. And
And you have an Instagram account where you actually.
Instagram and Facebook, it is for not just for me, for all the Iranian today, their social media is, a place that they are sharing the news and supporting the movement.
And we're hearing, and not to diminish what's happening to women, but we're seeing also that young men are being attacked as for whatever they want to charge them with. It's almost like it's not even makes sense that they're charging them with something. And the next thing you know, there's no trial, no nothing, and they're executed like the next day. I am shocked at what I see, and that there was the footballer. I mean, a young guy, and I mean, he did it was a kiosk or something, and bam.
Any.
In this country, we'd give them a slap on the hand and say, "Don't do that again."
Yeah. No, the story is the government knows it is end of their stories. They try to stop it. They try to make people more scared. But the point is, they are not scared. It is a pain. But even they talk to each other that it is not the time even for crying. They try to show themselves strong. Mothers start to even singing and dancing in the funeral as a protest because they want to send this message to government that you cannot
How
stop.
successful is this going to be?
It is 4 months. With all this violence that government, tried, they couldn't stop this movement. I am so hopeful. And today we can see in the world that many European governments and different, parties started to
Support that. To be supportive of what's going on.
Yeah.
I think as an American, and probably never had to deal with anything like this. I mean, nobody ever told me I couldn't wear my hair this way, or I couldn't wear this sweater, or I couldn't wear this jewelry. I'm sure that some cults do that. I'm not talking about that, but I'm talking about in general. It's so hard for me when I see what happened in Afghanistan. And many years ago, I had a lovely Afghanistan young woman on my show. It was a horrible story what she told, but this was like 20 years ago. What happened? Her father was murdered. I mean, it was a horrible story. They escaped and came through England and I don't know, through here. And I'm saying, people that are going through this, do you either stay and fight or do you try and get out of it? Mm-hmm. What is your alternative? I don't think, I read a piece from a woman in Afghanistan who said, I'm going to have to leave the country. And I wondered when I read that, how easily is that? That's not going to be an easy thing.
Leaving the country doesn't solve the problem. For me, if I left the country, my hope was be voice of the women, voice
exactly,
of my people.
Where you could maybe not be there.
Yeah.
You couldn't do that there.
So I tried as long as I could really do anything positive, I stayed. When I thought it is, it doesn't work anymore, I tried to move. So it depends which kind of people you are. If you are just thinking about your life, yeah, you can move from the country and make a life anywhere. But for people, I can say that in Iran, for the first time, people are really really make a change. And
you have to be there to make that change.
Yes.
Yeah.
And inside and outside of the country, I can see how much they are working as a united body.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I'm telling you that when Iran changed, when this regime changed, Afghanistan changed, all the Middle East can have a better, life, because Iran government is like a cancer for terrorism in the, you know what I mean?
I know.
For whole the world, it's better this regime change.
Yeah, it's so hard to believe that in this day and age that women are treated so poorly. Their property, they have no rights. I mean, I see that even happening in this country, that we're getting rights taken away from us. Someone said to me, the next thing they'll take away is our right to vote. And I'm going, heck, that could happen,
Yeah.
So I think that we have to be, like you, vigilant and to do what you can to affect change and to support those that are trying to make the change as well.
Thank you.
I am so appreciative that you're on the show.
Thank you for having
and that
me.
you've shared with me and with our viewers the trials and tribulations of women in other countries and especially Iran, that have to go through this and know that they have a fight that they have to carry on and teach their children and their male children.
Yep. Yeah.
So, yeah. Thank you so much for
Thank
being
you
here.
for having me. And
Such a pleasure.
Thank you.
Good. We'll talk more. Yeah. Thank you so much. Eleanor, it's so good to see you again.
Thank you. How are
And
you?
I love what you're doing, and I know that you've been vigilant in trying to get some laws passed and bills changed or passed. And basically, we're talking about the Final Exit Network, but you also work with Compassion and Choices.
Right. I deal with the subject that everybody would like to avoid, death. Nobody gets out of here alive.
Really?
No.
I didn't realize
Right,
that.
right. So 80% of people say that they would like to die at home,
Absolutely.
but 80% actually die in hospitals.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Even with hospice, huh?
Yeah. Only 20% of people manage to die at home. So what I guess I'm urging people to do is to support Compassion and Choices in New York so that we eventually get the bill out of committee and onto the floor of the
But you've been on
Assembly.
the show how many times,
Oh,
and it's
God.
still there.
Right. This is the 8th season. It's very hard to get a death with dignity bill passed, but right now 10 states and the District of Columbia do have death with dignity laws, which state that if a person is diagnosed as terminally ill by 2 physicians
And 6
and
months.
has 6
yeah.
months life expectancy, that person can qualify for a terminal medication, which they have to take by themselves.
Oh, even, I mean, it can't be administered?
No, it cannot be administered.
not
We
know
do
that.
not have physician administration.
Yeah.
So that automatically eliminates people who have neurodegenerative
Yeah, like
disease.
ALS, which
Right.
really would like to leave,
Right,
and they
right,
can't.
right.
Yeah.
So the other organization that I work very hard for is Final Exit Network. And Final Exit Network will interview people who are facing dire terminal illnesses and who perhaps would have enormous difficulty ingesting a medication. And Final Exit has a methodology which allows those people to end their lives themselves comfortably. And what Final Exit does is provide education and support, an exit guide, somebody to be a compassionate presence, to make sure that you don't die alone, and to assure the person has what the person wants, which is a peaceful ending.
One of the issues, and just to interrupt just a little bit here, one of the issues is, and these are the people that are against it, they're going to say, oh, that's how you get rid of your uncle that you want his inheritance. But that is not true.
Right. There are
But that's their argument. Every time that's what you hear.
But it's a fallacious argument. There are rigorous criteria for being accepted into the program in the 10 states that have physician aid in dying. 2 physicians have to certify that you voluntarily wish this medication, that you can self-administer. Nobody can speak for you. So it's really it's ironclad against that kind of abuse. With Final Exit, there's a psychiatrist, there's a medical doctor, you're interviewed. There's no taking people who are being coerced. This is voluntary.
So that's like you say, it's a fallacious argument. Yeah.
Right. And what prompts me to do this is that in the 1970s, my wonderful mother had ovarian cancer, and she went from being a robust, healthy woman to about a 65-pound skeleton. And she died over the course of 11 months. And at the end, she was tethered to so many tubes and machines, and she was not a happy person. She should have died 6 months earlier, and this was terrible. We don't let our cats and dogs suffer the way my mother suffered. So both organizations have wonderful websites. And on their websites, you can read all about what they do, what they don't do, and you get specific advice about what you should do. So people should have a living will. People should have healthcare proxies or a healthcare power of attorney. People should have a conversation with their spouse, with their children perhaps, or with very close friends. People should put their wishes in writing. And finally,
So if you want to be cremated,
Oh, yeah.
you should write that down, because the next thing you know, they go, well, I'm not sure. And someone says, well, she said she wanted to be cremated. Yeah, but I think maybe we should just have a funeral and bury her.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's like one of those things that person's wishes are
You
never.
really need to put down everything you want in writing, and it's good.
It's hard to do though, because nobody wants to die.
Well, but you know, how many people do you know who get out of here alive? No. So my husband and I have had the discussion, and we have sat down with our oldest son, and he hasn't been comfortable with this, but we've said, listen up, because this is
our
what
wishes.
we want, and he's on board. We've also sat down with a group of good friends, and most of them are in total agreement, and several of them have gone out and joined Final Exit and Compassionate Choices and have started working on their living will, their healthcare power of attorney. And I would emphasize that sometimes it's a good idea to mention it to your doctor. I think my doctor is not in favor of these organizations, but she won't have the final say. If you have a doctor who is in favor, that's really great. And 57% of physicians in New York State favor this. That's a majority. The majority among women physicians is much higher. Women tend to be much more realistic.
They're more compassionate.
Right, okay, we can say that. So right now, the big news is that New Jersey and Maine recently got death with dignity laws. Those are the newest. And Vermont has had one for several years.
Yeah, I know, I've heard that, yeah.
Yeah, and the question is, can people from other states?
That's my question, because that's what I'm doing. I'm getting on a train.
Well, except that, you know, do you have to have residency?
Yeah, you have to be there 6 months or something.
Well, that's going through a legal process right now. I think within the next year we'll have some clearer guidelines on that. But I would really urge all your listeners to sit down with their significant other or their best friend and talk about what they want and start putting it down. And both websites, finalexitnetwork.org and compassionatechoices.org, provide you with guidelines.
Oh, that's good.
To help you get started. There's the conversation starter kit. There's how to list what you want. And they actually have downloadable forms. Living will, healthcare power of attorney, healthcare proxy. So it's right there for you. And
I'm not sure that people listening are aware that these are available. That's really what's really good.
They are, and of course, both organizations have wonderful publications which they will send you free of charge, which give you more information. And I really think that it's time to get this bill passed in New York State. We came very close last year, but you need to get your assemblywomen on board, and the only way to do that is to send emails and calls to make your voice heard.
Well, it's interesting that I had a very good friend who decided that he wanted to make his own determination at the end. This was in Canada, and I think I've told you about that. And he did it in the hospital with no issues. It was an easy peasy thing. I mean, granted, he was ill. He was going to die. I mean, he had maybe 6 months to live. I mean, it wasn't just willy-nilly. You just decide. No, I mean, there was a whole process. And I thought, what dignity he had in making that decision. His family supported him. When I talk to people about that, I would say 90% of the people I talk to are in favor of that.
Right.
So why is there such a stumbling block on this? Is it because we have lawmakers that don't care about their constituents, but only what they think and what they feel? And so they vote their own prejudice rather than what the people want.
That may be part of it. Certainly the two major obstacles to these bills have been pressure from the Catholic Church.
There you go.
Which says that it's morally wrong to take a life.
But we are not a theocracy.
Right. And the other organization is the disability rights groups who are afraid that this is the beginning of a slippery slope. And that also is a fallacious argument.
I don't see
because
that,
the
yeah.
criteria for accessing physician aid in dying is that you have to
6 months.
want it, you have to write a statement of why you want it, 2 physicians and a psychiatrist
Yeah,
will
no,
examine
it doesn't
you.
make sense.
This
You can't,
is-
it doesn't make
Right,
sense. Yeah.
right. So all it takes is, the will of the people and political pressure. But until we get a bill in New York State passed, people do have access to Final Exit, which has no membership fee, which is available to anybody who contacts them, and which offers really great advice, great services, and great documents, all free of charge. It is totally a volunteer organization. They have 3 paid employees who do, the computer work and the accounting. But in all my years of working with Final Exit, I have spoken with people who have accessed their services, there have been no instances of abuse or coercion.
It seems like that's called murder if if it was something else.
Right.
But the point is, this to me is so above board, and so many I guess pieces in place that prevent any wrongdoing. I'm not saying you couldn't, I guess, but it doesn't make sense how it could happen, because I'm sure that when the person has to say this is what I want, they have to be of sound mind.
Right.
So there's no way that this could be,
Right. Right,
changed.
precisely. So it's really important. And I would like to just add one thing. For people who live alone, who perhaps never married or widowed, have no children, the question of who is your healthcare proxy, who is going to speak for you, in your network of friends, close friends, you need to find somebody who is willing to take that responsibility. My husband and I and my son are sometimes frequent in the car together, the 3 of us. And so I thought ahead and said, what if we had an accident and all 3 of us
Exactly.
were incapacitated? And I asked a very good friend who happens to be a nurse if she would act as a healthcare proxy.
Can you have more than one healthcare proxy?
Yeah, sure. You can have a primary, a secondary,
Okay,
a
good,
tertiary.
good.
Absolutely. In
That's
fact,
important to know.
You
That's
should.
important to know. Yeah.
Because if you and your healthcare proxy are in an accident together, you
got
need
nobody.
someone to speak for you.
Yeah, exactly.
So it doesn't have to be a relative.
No, I knew that it didn't have to be a relative, but I didn't know you could have more than one. That's good.
Oh,
So, yeah. Well, first of all, I want to thank you for being here and enlightening our viewers about the different variations in between Compassionate Choices and Final Exit Network, and the fact that there are some bills out there that people should get behind.
Oh, yeah.
I want to tell you who's coming up next. I think we're almost out of time. Coming up next time, we have an author. Frank Robinson is going to be on, and he's written a book. Well, it's really interesting, but I'm not going to tell you the title. Creative Action is here with Tony Pallone. We've got DSIC is going to be on to talk about their restaurant week. We have Opera Saratoga coming on the show. There'll be a first time for us. And we have a performance from Carmen Luckshire and Guilty Pleasures. Oh, they are so good. You're going to love them. So please watch us next time. I'm Ann Pearl, your host for Capital Region Today.